Listen, if we move into a central bank digital currency or a one world currency that's purely digital and does not have any protections, then the IMF or the DCMA or whatever authority is behind this will have wholesale control of the monetary supply when they want to print money, when they want to send it to you, when they want to take it from you, when they want to see who you've sent money to, who you've transacted with, what you're doing with their money. They will have full visibility into every single thing that you as a citizen of the world do with your money at any given time, and will be able to control what and where you spend your money. It's absolutely, it's just terrifying.
We're talking crypto market outlook with Scott Melker. He is the host of the Wolf of All Streets podcast. Scott, welcome to my show.
Thank you so much, and congratulations on your show. It's really exciting to see you with your own channels and doing so well.
Thank you, Scott. I'd like to talk about cryptos with you today. You are the crypto guru, and let's start by talking about your sentiment on the market. You're telling me offline, one of the big themes is why there's been a big rally. Well, we know the stock market's rallied, and that's part of the reason. What else is going on?
I think that 2022 obviously was a horrid year, a ton of contagion, a lot of forced selling, a lot of negative news. And I think we're just coming out of the other side of that. You know, we talked about that sort of extended crypto winter. Well, I think we're now obviously into a crypto spring here. I think another huge part of it is that everyone who was forced to sell or needed to sell or wanted to sell, they basically did that last year already. And so we're seeing prices continue to rise. I think there's another element, which is that obviously markets tend to trend towards where the maximum amount of pain is inflicted, right? The idea of max pain. And I think that has really been a slow grind up. There are so many crypto people who are waiting to buy lower. There's also so many, unfortunately, who lost their funds in Celsius, BlockFi, FTX, Voyager, and still don't have access. So unfortunately, there's a ton of pain watching the market rise without them and them not having the ability to, trade those assets or buy more. And so I just think that it's made a lot of sense for Bitcoin to continue to rise here. We've obviously seen the narrative with bank collapses and Bitcoin at that very moment going from 19,000 up to almost 30,000 and now surpassing 30,000. I just think that we're in an environment where there's a lot of reasons to really like crypto, even in the face of all of the bad news and regulatory uncertainty.
I've talked to some people about their sentiment, and the consensus, from what I've heard at least, is that while we may get more of an uptick in Bitcoin, we may not see new all-time highs for a while. Not right away, at least. It's not going to be a straight skyrocket upwards. So we're not quite out of this crypto spring yet. It's not quite summer. What do you think?
I agree with that wholeheartedly. Listen, a move from 19,000 or the lows in the high 15,000s up to 30 is great. It's a doubling, but there's no reason to start getting excited and say, hey, we're going to 100,000. We're going to 200,000, even when we're going to pass 69,000. I think that, we may rise a bit more, but there's a lot of reasons to believe that this market will continue to be volatile as it always has, and that maybe we'll just continue to chop sort of sideways throughout the rest of the year until we get a bit more clarity on the regulatory side. We move into 2024 and the Bitcoin halving obviously coming with the 4-year cycle that we've seen repeated over and over and over again in the crypto world. So yes, I think it's extremely hyperbolic to start talking about new highs. I think we should be happy with what we've gotten here and watch very closely the developments surrounding this market.
An uber bullish theory I've heard is that if more banks collapse, we're going to see a huge wave of capital move into DeFi and perhaps into Bitcoin. And that could propel us into new highs. And certainly this momentum will continue. Is that something that makes sense to you?
I think it makes sense, but not on a widespread mainstream adoption level. Even this move from 19,000 to almost 30,000 in Bitcoin. And, like you said, I talked to a lot of people about this. I had Michael Saylor, I had Balaji, I've had all these people on my Twitter spaces and shows and have asked them that very question. Why did we go so fast from 19,000 up to around 30 when the banks collapsed? And all of them said it's because people in crypto already are rushing into Bitcoin. But it's not because a bunch of people all over the world who own stocks are selling their stocks or selling their gold or selling any of these things to get into Bitcoin. I don't think the volume indicates that we have a ton of new entrants into the space or into the system. I think it's really crypto people realizing that where you want to be right now is Bitcoin, going back to the original ethos of Bitcoin and to that narrative. But inevitably that continues to shift in crypto. You see a movement then once Bitcoin stabilizes at a higher price into altcoins, trickling down from Ethereum on down. And we're starting to see that literally as we speak right now. I kind of joke you could literally fall on your head and go into a coma and miss all macro events over the past 2 years, and you would know exactly where we were in the 4-year cycle and exactly what was going to happen just by looking at a chart.
Peculiar news out of cryptocurrencies I want to talk about. So FTX has supposedly recovered up to $7 billion. Yeah, $7.3 billion in cash and liquid crypto assets. This is according to, several articles. I'm reading Reuters from a week ago. And as of that news item, the FTT token has skyrocketed. I'll put a chart up on the screen. It's crazy. People are talking about an FTX revival because they've recovered these funds. Is that something that you think is actually going to happen? Are the regulators going to allow that, you think?
Well, first of all, the regulators in the United States, people seem to forget, don't really have much jurisdiction over FTX, which is offshore. So I guess we should be talking to the Bahamian regulators about that specifically. I don't see FTX US launching anytime soon, to be quite honest. Listen, they've recovered $7 billion, I guess, from Sam Bankman-Fried's couch cushions and from, and a pillow stuffed under his mattress. I don't know. FTT token is rising. I can tell you with almost near certainty that FTT, the token, will be no part of another FTX. So it's nonsense that people are trading that aggressively on that news. B, I can tell you that the sequel is rarely better than the original. So I can't imagine many people rushing to FTX 2 after they saw what happened with FTX 1, even under new management. And I think that if they've recovered $7 billion out of 13 or 14 billion in assets, they should just return those to creditors immediately, give them their haircut, give them their 50 cents on the dollar, and stop spending money on lawyers and fees and new CEOs and Chapter 11 bankruptcy process, because creditors are paying for that right now. I'm a Voyager creditor. I've been down this road. If they had just liquidated the assets last June when Voyager declared bankruptcy, which we all know was just to protect the executives from lawsuits, if they had just liquidated it then, we would have gotten 70, 75, even pushing potentially towards 80 cents on the dollar, even with that missing 600 million or 700 million to Three Arrows Capital. Well, now that they've spent tens and tens of millions of more dollars going down this Chapter 11 bankruptcy hole, well, we're going to get a hell of a lot less. So the thing that FTX should do is recover as much as possible, get it back to people immediately, and let them have their money and do with it what they please.
I'm reading this article. It says, so far, FTX customers in Japan have been the only ones able to withdraw any funds so far because of that country's relatively strong crypto regulations. So have you heard or talked to people from the US who work FTX customers? Have you heard any talks of people getting their money back after this recovery?
No, I haven't heard. Since the bankruptcy, I haven't heard of anybody getting money back. And to be quite honest, FTX US has even more uncertainty probably than the main exchange, because nobody is yet to define what the relationship was between the main FTX and FTX US. Obviously, we saw a sort of long line of FTX US executives leaving months before this happened. So it seems that there was some uncertainty already in the air, certainly some fear from people there, but we can't even get clarity, which will probably take months or even years on what the balances were on these exchanges, how much of that was on FTX or FTX US, where people fall in line as creditors to those two separate, or maybe they're the same company. I think it's going to be a long, long, painful road ahead.
Well, this is from their lawyer, Andy Dieterich. It says, as it looks to the future, FTX is negotiating with stakeholders about options for restarting its crypto exchange, and it may make a decision on that in the current quarter. So they're deciding between Chapter 11 and restarting the exchange. So two opposites of the extreme. This is an interesting development. We'll see what happens. But Scott, I'm just going to ask you point blank: would you use FTX if it restarted?
Not in a million years. Absolutely not.
It's got better management, new CEO. I'm just throwing out.
First of all, I'm in the United States, and the main FTX, which was actually the superior exchange to FTX US, isn't available to me. But no, I've seen this story. I don't care. I want nothing to do with it. I'm out. And listen, that may be unfair, right? But I think that the sentiment around it will be extremely negative. I don't know if you saw, but the founders of CoinFlex, which was the exchange that made a massive unsecured loan to Roger Ver and effectively had to go, was unable to return money to their creditors. Mark Lamb, he partnered with the guys from Three Arrows Capital, and they have a new exchange called OpenX, and they're trying to go along their own redemption arc and did less than $10 in trading on their first day. And are now doing, I don't know, thousands or tens of thousands, as opposed to the tens or hundreds of millions you would need to be a viable exchange. I don't think that people are going to rush back into FTX. I don't think that people trust the bad actors or questionable motives of people who have failed in the past. And I just don't see it happening. I will not be using FTX.
Okay. Will you be using CBDCs is the next topic of our discussion. Let's just talk about CBDCs overall, and then I have a specific news item I want to bring up to you. FedCoin is under development. 114 countries around the world are working on this. FedNow was released a few weeks ago. Some say it's a stepping stone towards CBDCs. Now, CBDCs are coming. It's a matter of when, not if. How do you see this rollout happening?
First of all, your first question is, will I use it? And I'm assuming it's going to be force fed to me. And if I want to pay my rent or my mortgage or my kids' school tuition, I will probably have to use a central bank digital currency. Right. So that is not a question that is up to me necessarily. As far as the rollout, I think we're very, very far from seeing that in the United States. I think the fear of a wholesale central bank digital currency here are a bit overblown in the short term. But as you said, there are a lot of countries that are testing it. Some have moved on to the next phase, and we've seen it effectively deployed already in China. And I think it will be countries like China that have a bit of authoritarian control that will be able to roll these out in the near future. Now, I spoke actually last week with Chris Giancarlo, who is a former commissioner of the CFTC, and he runs a think tank that basically advises countries on how central bank digital currencies should be created with proper privacy to mimic cash and without the violations, the Digital Dollar Project. I think that is interesting. There is a chance that a central bank digital currency by a honest government could be rolled out that effectively is, just a better version of a Venmo or a PayPal or the ways that we transact already. But I have very little faith in the government that that's what we would see. I think we're going to see these all over the world. Technology is inevitable. I don't think we'll see it in the United States anytime soon. And I don't think that FedNow is a central bank digital currency at all. Right.
It's probably a stepping stone, but you're right. It's not a CBDC at all. It's just another form of payment. Okay, this is very interesting. I'm just going to read this article here. They announced their official launch of an international central bank digital currency that strengthens the monetary sovereignty of participating central banks. It says that it's not meant to be, the legislation is not proposing it to be legal tender in all countries, but from what I'm seeing, it seems like they're creating this universal kind of digital currency that down the line could be used anywhere. This is still early stage, but just conceptually speaking, Scott, would this work, you think?
Absolutely terrifying. Would it work? That depends, I guess, on how much people are willing to roll over and take it. But I don't think that anyone wants the IMF or any of these world organizations controlling the money moving forward into the future. It would be a wholesale violation of our privacy. This is where you start stepping into the territory of you get airdropped $1,000 from your paycheck and you have to spend it on groceries and shoes, or else it disappears in 2 weeks. And when they want your taxes, they take it directly out of your wallet, and they know exactly every person you've ever sent a single penny in UMU or whatever we're calling it to. This is really, really terrifying stuff, honestly. And I think that in a country, especially like the United States, where we value our freedom of speech, our freedom of privacy, the First and Fourth Amendments, that this is something that hopefully our government on our behalf would push back on aggressively, but that we as citizens would need to push back on. Listen, I don't see this happening. This is Orwellian, but it's really scary.
So the initiative is being proposed by the Digital Currency Monetary Authority, so the DCMA. It says that it's proposed by the DCMA, and the IMF is still reviewing the white paper from the DCMA, but it's yet to state any objections so far. I'm curious as to why you think it's Orwellian and terrifying. Curious to get your thoughts.
Well, people deserve privacy. right? And people deserve to have choice, and having a one world currency forced down their throat is likely the path to you'll be poor and you'll like it, right? Sort of the meme that we often say in the crypto community. But I sort of rattled off a few reasons there. But listen, if we move into a central bank digital currency or a one world currency that's purely digital and does not have any protections, then the IMF or the DCMA or whatever authority is behind this will have wholesale control of the monetary supply when they want to print money, when they want to send it to you, when they want to take it from you, when they want to see who you've sent money to, who you've transacted with, what you're doing with their money. They will have full visibility into every single thing that you as a citizen of the world do with your money at any given time, and will be able to control what and where you spend your money. It's absolutely it's just terrifying. I've said it, but I can't imagine a world where that would be acceptable to any citizen who values their freedom.
I'm not discounting what you said, and many people do agree with you. I'm just, for the sake of a balanced discussion, I'm trying to think of the benefits of such a system. I'm just trying to brainstorm here. Perhaps when you're traveling, it could be a more convenient tool to have. If you just, instead of converting your currency, you have one universal currency. Think of the euro when you're traveling between European countries. Perhaps this might be a tool to fight terrorism or track down terrorism. Perhaps this might... It might make cross-border payments more efficient. Do you think any of the pros outweigh the cons?
No, I think that those are a drop in the bucket of the massive negatives. We all know that violations of privacy and freedom are a slippery slope and only go in one direction, right? When you give up your freedom, you never get it back. We saw obviously the Patriot Act, under George Bush. If you're in the United States, everybody obviously knows about that. Now we have the proposed Restrict Act. They're not even hiding it under a cool and positive name like Patriot Act anymore. They're just telling you exactly what they're going to do, which is restrict your activity, which is purportedly to block people from using TikTok. But if you actually read the vague and nonsensical, to be honest, language, it basically says that any single platform deemed dangerous by the United States government, you can get a massive fine and go to jail for using as a United States citizen without defining exactly what those are and what they would be in the future. You can see how that could be massively dangerous. These kind of things are being pushed left and right from both the United States government and governments around the world. And now, of course, from the DCMA, there are plenty of ways to make cross-border payments better and plenty of ways to make traveling easier. First of all, when you travel, don't you just use a credit card and it automatically converts? I mean, do I really need to go somewhere and get a digital world currency to convert into to do this? Cross-border payments, you can send a stable coin to someone anywhere in the world, $3 worth for effectively no money in 5 seconds. So no, I don't need to give up my privacy to be able to do that with a world currency. I just don't. I get the theoretical benefit. If it was deeply ingrained with privacy protection, sure, but I don't see it.
I'll put the white paper in the link in the description below. People can read it and decide for themselves. A short blurb about it in this article: UMU, also known as Unicoin, is an innovation in store of value cryptography. It says, powered by artificial intelligence. It adopts a central bank monetary policy framework to ensure it has continuous purchasing demand. I'm looking at the exchange rate, 0.96 to the dollar. So it looks like it's tracking the dollar. We're very closely tracking the dollar. Yeah, like you said, this is interesting. It's scary. But, CBDCs are happening all over the world, whether or not you like it. There could come a time when you go to any country, you're going to use a local digital currency, right? So why not just a universal digital currency?
Right. And I think that that's totally fine if they create them in a way that offers privacy and protection to the citizenry, which can be done, but getting rid of cash and being able to track every single transaction is not a benefit to any individual human being. But like I said, technology is unstoppable, right? I mean, we all our money is digital anyways, right? Not that many people are using cash on a day-to-day basis. We're using PayPal, we're using Venmo, we're using obviously Swift payment. That is all digital already. This is just another step in that direction. It can be done right.
Well, actually, you said you've spoken to the CFTC about privacy. Have you spoken to, what was that conversation like? And have you spoken to legal experts about this? I'm curious as to what, whether or not any sort of breach of our constitutional rights are in place, if let's say the government steps in and monitor our payments or spending or control where we spend money, like, is that even constitutional?
I think this would go straight to the Supreme Court, but again, it depends on the structure of this central bank digital currency. If it is cryptographically secure, they don't know every single transaction, and then it could be done, obviously, in a way that I think is constitutional. You look at what's happening with the ECNY in China, you're already seeing that would never theoretically fly in the United States in its current state, right? I mean, being able to remove your access to your wallet because of your social behavior, things like that. I mean, it's very scary, but that's what they obviously are going to be doing there. But that's the direction that this is heading in the United States if we have it structured in that same manner and they don't think about these very important aspects, which I think are being sort of thrown by the wayside. I mean, the United States clearly is moving more in a China direction as we speak. And I don't think that's being hyperbolic when you look at the Restrict Act.
So let's talk about that very briefly. Not to get too political, but it is important to bring it up because it's not a matter of, this is a discussion I had with somebody else. It's not a matter of the tools, the technology. The government here in the West can already do exactly what China is doing. It's not we're not technologically restricted that way. It's a matter of policy and whether or not there's an incentive to move towards. I'm not saying in the West we're going to get a social credit score, but do we have an incentive in the West, in the U.S. and Canada and so forth, to start moving in that direction and be a little bit more, I don't know, big brother-ish?
Yeah, listen, the Canadian truckers had their bank accounts frozen, right? Because they simply protested. And listen, I don't get political and I don't want anyone to believe that I'm on the right or the left. I think that I'm just pragmatic and rational. But we've seen violations of privacy with our money already in the countries that you're mentioning. And we've seen legislation proposed that would further those violations. So yes, I think we are moving more into an Orwellian Big Brother state. And I think that, Simon Dixon is a friend of mine who I've had on my show quite a few times. I don't know if you know him, but he's sort of has this comment that he often makes that the United States and China are moving in a direction towards one another, and they meet at a central bank digital currency. And I think that's not the worst take possible. And I do think that we are starting to look a bit more like China as we advance towards a CBDC, and certainly with the Restrict Act.
Well, okay, so tell us some.
Which, by the way, is supported by members of both parties and opposed by members of both parties. So this isn't a left or right thing.
Isn't it a step forward for addressing regulation or not?
Is the Restrict Act a step forward for addressing regulation? No, absolutely not. We don't need to ban TikTok. It's absurd because mostly it's just twerking videos, and big tech companies are already, even in the United States, tracking all of our data and violating our privacy.
It's kind of like reverse policy restricting, right? We're policing, right? I mean, if people are concerned about their privacy being revoked by the U.S. government, wouldn't you also be concerned about privacy being revoked by the Chinese government? That's the theory, all right?
We're literally saying, like, we need to ban TikTok because the Chinese government has access to the data. Okay, that is problematic. I'm not denying that. But the answer, if you actually read the Restrict Act and the proposed legislation, is to give up all of your privacy in the United States to potentially get rid of TikTok. It makes absolutely no sense.
What was that state that recently completely banned TikTok? Was it Montana?
Yeah, I think that. Well, I saw that Montana. I believe, now you're going to quote me on it, but I think they one of them banned OpenAI. Was it ChatGPT or something?
Yeah, it's Montana. Montana lawmakers approved statewide ban on TikTok. Yeah, that was 3 days ago.
Yeah. Okay, states' rights. I don't get it. I think individuals should have the option to opt out of platforms like this if they're truly concerned about their data, and it's not necessarily Big Brother's decision to make. But listen, even if we agree, which you can, that TikTok needs to go and needs to be banned in the United States, then write a bill that bans just TikTok in the United States. Don't write a bill that allows the government indefinitely to choose anything they deem unfit for you as an individual to ban, that's attached to a massive penalty for you if you decide to access it.
It is weird because there was just, I think 2 days ago, Elon Musk was talking about how the U.S. government had access to private Twitter DMs. Are we going to ban Twitter too? I mean, what?
Yeah, dude, like I said, this is such a slippery slope in the wrong direction. It's becoming almost unfathomable to me that this is what we're discussing in 2023.
It's look, it's I don't know exactly what's going on. People smarter than me know, but from the surface level, from just somebody observing it, it looks like they're trying to get rid of competition, right? TikTok is a Chinese app at the end of the day, and they're competing with another tech giant, right? I mean, I just brought up a case where the U.S. government is using social media to spy on people, and yet nothing's being done about that. So,
American companies control all of your data, the way you think, what you see, and are selling you to the highest bidder. And we're going to violate all of our own privacies moving forward because of TikTok. Makes no sense.
Finally, Scott, you have a great podcast. It's called The Host. You're the host of The Wolf of All Streets. I'll put the link in the description down below. Very informative channel. You've got a lot of great stuff there. You do reports by yourself and you interview a lot of industry experts. What's something interesting you've heard or have been discussing recently on your own show?
Honestly, I think that no matter who you talk to, somehow it circles back to artificial intelligence. Even in the crypto space now, everybody is extremely excited about the exponential growth and potential of AI. And obviously that is a hot button issue because much like TikTok, a lot of people think that it should be banned or stopped or seized because it's happening so fast and the fears of what could happen in the future. So listen, I think, I have a crypto show. So we're all very excited that Bitcoin has finally started to rise, that Ethereum had a successful upgrade, all of these things. But somehow we always, even though it's a crypto show, circle back to the potential of AI. I think that that's really what everyone is talking about right now.
Right. Yeah. AI is taking over everyone. I often joke it's gonna start podcasting soon.
I'm sure it will. I'm sure it will. You can literally go make a Jay-Z song where he's rapping next to Bob Marley singing on the hook that's produced by David Guetta in 10 minutes. So I wouldn't be surprised if someone could replicate our voices and have a intelligent conversation, probably a more intelligent conversation than I'm capable of. I listen.
I agree with you there, actually. Oh man, we're all going to be out of a job. All right, time to upgrade my skills. And on that note, thank you, Scott, for coming on my show and giving us your insights on the crypto markets. I appreciate it. Everybody should check out the Wolf of All Streets podcast. It's a great show. I'll put the link in the description below. Thank you, Scott.
Thank you so much, David. Really a pleasure.
And thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe.